Hey, welcome back everybody. So today we're going to install this brand new beautiful double basin stainless steel sink into this brand new countertop. I'm going to show you how to measure for everything, how to get your holes cut, how to do the mounting, and then additionally we're going to make a series of videos with this cabinet and this little mock setup here where I'm also going to show you how to install the strainer baskets, the faucets, the plumbing underneath, etc. So we're going to make a nice little series of videos out of this. But before we dive into this one, let me show you what tools you're going to need. Alright, now the truth is you're not going to need every single one of these tools here, but I'd rather show you too much and have you be over-prepared than show you too little and have you be under-prepared. So the first thing is a jigsaw. You're going to be using this jigsaw to cut out your hole here. You're also going to need a multi-tool. This is a different type of saw that we're going to be able to use to come along the back and cut this hole. Now, if you don't have a multi-tool and if your countertop is not already connected and you're doing this on a brand new countertop install, which is usually what you'll be doing, it's much easier to actually cut these from underneath. However, just to be on the safe side, I'm going to show you everything done from the top, and you will need a multi-tool in order to do that from the top. Of course, as with just about any job, you're going to need your trusty drill. You're also going to need a Phillips and a common slotted screwdriver, a nice large drill bit that at the very least is just simply as big or bigger than the blade that is in your jigsaw. A couple pencils, some masking tape, utility knife, a square. Now you don't really have to have the square for sure, it just makes things go a little bit smoother, and a nice long straight edge, which could be your square or could be this level here. And these are all the tools you're going to need for this job. You're really not going to need anything else. And like I said, you don't even actually need every single one of these. Now, I also have this kit here. This is my kitchen sink kit. It's a brand new kit that I've just made to replace two separate kits that I used to have. And what's in this kit is everything that you need to work on kitchen sinks. I'm not going to take the whole thing apart right at this moment and show you everything here at the beginning. But when we're done putting this kitchen sink in, I'll also take you through the kit in case you want to see what I carry with me to work on kitchen sinks. And now I'll go ahead and show you my process, and I'll also tell you how other people do this process. So the first thing we're going to do is just set the sink down upside down, and we're going to line it up, just kind of eyeballing it. Now I'm leaving about a 1/4 inch gap between the back of the actual sink body itself and the backsplash here. I'm leaving a 1/4 inch gap back there. And then I'm going to take my tape measure, which by the way is part of the tools you need for this. I didn't have it in the list because it was on my hip. You always need a tape measure everywhere you go. And I'm going to come around to the front and do some measuring. And the first thing I'm going to do before I even start measuring is I'm going to get this level and a pencil. And I'm just going to line up my level or any other straight edge that you have. And by the way, you can eyeball this and you'll probably get it just right. So I'm going to get that nice and lined up so I have my center mark. Make a little mark on my tape here, and then just carry that mark around up to the top. There we go. And underneath, mark that. So now we have a pretty good center line. And this hole here, right in the center of the sink, this is going to be the precise center of the two basins of this sink. So we want to lay this down. We want to line up our center line right on this center hole right here. Now, because I've done a few of these, I do already have a few tricks right off the top of my head. And one of those tricks is just simply that I'm going to trace the outline of this sink with simply a 1/4 inch, roughly a 1/4 inch gap in the back, and then centered on this hole up front. And I happen to know that this is going to work out just fine for me. However, I will show you the alternate methods as well. So get your line marked all the way around. Make sure you hold your pen or your pencil at the right angle so that you're not putting that line too far underneath. Now we've got our markings all the way around. The next step is actually going to be to remove this sink here. And once we've got that sink removed, we're going to take our straight edge and we're just going to go from the perimeter of that sink about 3/8 of an inch in. And this does not have to be absolutely perfect. If it's pretty close to 3/8, you're probably going to be okay. And we're just going to go in from each of these lines about an additional 3/8. And we're going to get all of these marked. So I happen to know that these are basically marked in the right spot. However, your sink is almost certainly going to come with a brand new template, and you're going to be able to put this template down and use it to trace where the official edges of the sink really should be. If I lay this template out on mine, it looks like it's wanting me to take maybe an additional 1/16 of an inch off of the top and bottom. Seems like I got the left and right just absolutely perfectly spot on. Yep, it's wanting me to take off an additional 1/16 of an inch off the top and bottom. So if you're going to be using these, the best way to use this is of course going to be to tape it down. So we'll go ahead and just start at any random corner. We'll put one piece of tape on there. Then we're going to come all the way to the opposing corner. We're going to get it nice and lined up. We're going to put one piece of tape on there. And then come back to each opposing corner and put a piece of tape on those corners. Again, you're going to have just a little bit of wiggle room in this once you get it all fully installed. And that little bit of wiggle room is going to make up for any inconsistencies. So this is not an absolute scientific placement here. Now, the one thing I do want to point out, something you do have to check for sure, is you're going to want to make sure that wherever you draw this line, because this is the line you're going to cut on, you don't want to be cutting into your cabinet. I have hinged this top to make it nice and easy for me on this video. Of course, your top won't be hinged, but you're going to want to measure. This one comes in about 1.5 inches from the front of the drawer face. But if I go from where the line is that I'm telling myself to cut, it looks like I have almost a full 2 inches. So I know that my cut line is going to be back from here and everything's going to work out just fine. So if you choose to go the template method, then go ahead and get your template taped on here. Use a pencil and go all the way around the edge and mark the edges of your template so you have your lines that you're going to cut. And since I've already put this template on for you guys, I'll use it to go ahead and extend my lines out. All right, once you've got all that done, you can go ahead and remove your tape, remove your template. And this next step is going to be fairly important, especially depending on what kind of countertop you have here. But especially if you have the old school Formica countertops, you're going to want to put a piece of tape down just on the outskirts of the lines that you're going to be cutting. And the reason you're going to be doing this is because, number one, your actual jigsaw, your actual tool, can damage your work surface. And number two, the blade that you're using may or may not try to rip out the top of your countertop. And if it does try to rip out the top of your countertop, you might have a mess that extends beyond the edges of the sink, and you've now got to do some major repairs to your countertop before anything's going to actually work. So we just get this tape just on the outskirts of the line that we're going to be cutting. There we go. And then we'll just do another layer just for safe measure, just to make these extend out a little bit further so we don't scratch anything up. Next step, we're going to drill some holes. And what these holes are for is just to give you nice, easy in and out starting places for your jigsaw blade. So we're going to come to each corner and we're going to make a hole on each side of the rounded portion of each corner. And we're going to make sure that the edge of the hole we drill does not extend into the tape. In other words, does not extend past the lines that we're going to be cutting on. We want the edge of the hole to line up with the line that we're going to be cutting. All right, and we got all our holes drilled. Next step is going to be to cut them out. So to cut these out, we're going to use our jigsaw. But what I want to show you guys, and I'm sure the camera won't pick this up, so you're just going to have to remember this. But this blade right here, this blade has the teeth turned downwards. So if I cut into this countertop from the top, then the cutting stroke is going to be the downstroke, and then the upstroke is not going to be doing any cutting. And then the next downstroke is going to cut, and the upstroke will not cut. That's the opposite of a normal jigsaw blade. The reason that we're using this particular blade is because we have this laminate on top, and again, like I was saying, especially if you have old school Formica, it's going to be very prone to chipping. So the old school blades that cut in this direction on the upstroke, they're going to rip this laminate up, which is why we have the tape. But just to be extra safe, we're going to use this downcut blade, so it only cuts on the downstroke. That way we're not going to damage any of this laminate. So before we start cutting, we're going to clean this countertop off, and I'm going to get a nice fresh battery in the jigsaw, and we're going to go to town and get this baby cut. So we'll start off with the sides, and we're just going to cut the sides from the front to the back. So we've cut this side all the way back to the next hole that we drilled. Go ahead and yank that out, come to the other side, do the same thing. And then pull that guy out. Now the next thing we're going to have to do, however, is get this back line. And what you might notice here is that there isn't enough room for my jigsaw up against this backsplash to cut out this line on the back, which is why I was saying earlier, chances are if you're installing a new sink and needing to cut a hole, it's because you're putting in new countertops. So the best way to do this is all the things that I'm doing except from underneath. So if you have to do it from on top, then what you're going to need is your multi-tool here. So let's get these batteries swapped out. And we'll take our multi-tool all the way down this line. It's crazy to me how this thing cuts just as fast as that jigsaw. I love these new multi-tools. These were junk back when I was a young man and they first came out, but these days these multi-tools are just, they're indispensable. Now keep in mind with these corners, the edge of the sink is going to be on this outside line that we traced. And we just need to cut away what's on this inside line here. So if we need to be a little messy throughout here, as long as we remove all the material we need to remove, it's okay if we cut into this 3/8 inch thick zone in between. And we can do the same thing over here. And that should be enough to get us through here. Now, if it's not, we can always go back and clean that up a little bit later. So now we're at the interesting part. The only thing that we have not cut is this corner and this corner. So these two little rounded corners are all that's holding this entire piece in here, unless we missed a little chunk or two in the back, but I don't think we did. So when we cut these corners, this whole thing is going to want to fall through. And of course, we don't want to damage the inside of the cabinet or anything that's been installed inside the cabinet. So we're going to have to come underneath. And I just put my hands up. Well, let me show you. So we can come underneath, and you can just hold this from underneath while you're cutting. So the first one I'll cut is going to be the side one here. And now, as you can see, we're almost fully out. So hold this one really well in the middle, and then go to town. And there we go. Let's pop this out, or in. And there it is. Nice and careful. Get this out without scratching everything up. And we can clean this work surface off now and test it out to see if we cut everything in the right place. And the ultimate test now is we're just going to drop the sink in and see what happens. And wouldn't you know, everything seems to fit just fine. So now we've got our hole cut for our sink, and all we've got left to do is mount it. Now before I mount this, I'm going to take the sink out and I'm going to put a bead of caulk around the edge. And the reason I'm going to do that is to make sure that when water gets outside the sink on the countertop, it doesn't seep its way underneath and into this particle board and destroy this particle board. And how I'm going to put the caulk on is I'm just simply going to put one decent little bead all the way around that original perimeter line that I traced. And I'm going to overlap that line. So some of the caulk's going to be on the inside of the line, some of it's going to be on the outside of the line. And by the way, it is not going to be a huge deal if you don't do this perfectly. This is not a science. This is not absolutely necessary. In fact, I don't think this is even necessarily in the instructions for every sink. It's just something I like to do to help make sure they stay waterproof. And it also helps bed the sink down to the countertop just a little bit so that it's even more tightly installed and less likely to move around on you. And by the way, at the end, we're also going to just caulk the edge of the sink anyways. So this is truly just a bedding layer. All right. We've got our caulk in. So now all that's left to do is line her up. And pop it down in there, just like that. We're not going to worry about all this excess caulk. This is nice and easy to clean off when we get to the end. So the next thing we're going to do now is we're going to take our hardware kit. This is our actual installation hardware, and we're going to have to go underneath to get all this installed. All right, now this part is important. I have all the install hardware right here. On a typical installation, you're going to go underneath the cabinet to put this hardware on, or if these are new countertops going in, then you can install this sink before you put the countertop on, and then bring the whole assembly in and put it down. However, I have hinged the back of this so I can lift this up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop down there real quick, and I'm going to throw 2 of these mounts on just to hold this sink tightly in place, and then I'm going to go ahead and pop it up so I can show you guys a close-up from underneath how these actually get mounted, how the mounting mechanisms work. So if you'll give me just a second, I'm going to pop down there, put 2 of these on, and then we'll pick this up and I'll show you how the sink mounts. All right, I got a couple of those on underneath, so let's go ahead and pick this guy up. Here we go. And I'm going to show you the mounting underneath. Now, one of the first things we're going to do before we really set this mounting in place is just make sure that we're nice and even. I can see that I might need this side to come back about that far. Maybe one more tap. There we go. So here's how these work. As you can see, I've got one here and one here. All right, so here's how we're going to mount these. Hopefully you have a good view of this. You've got a side with some teeth, and you've got a shorter side. You've got a side with a large hole, and you've got a side with a keyhole. You're going to take this piece, which is your bolt, and you're going to stick the threaded end through the large hole and into the keyhole, and then you're going to turn to the left as if it were reverse threaded. So that leaves you with this little assembly right here. I hope you can see this good. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to pop this assembly into that channel. So now we're stuck in the channel, right? Once we're inside this channel, we're going to go ahead and stick our screwdriver into the end of this. These are usually common slotted, sometimes they're Phillips, and we can start tightening this down. And eventually, we make it all the way to the countertop, and we just make sure that these teeth are on the wood and that our head is inside the rail, and then we just tighten these down. Come around here to the side, and once again, turn to the left, slide it into the rail. I put them about that far in, and then just tighten them down. Same thing, counter thread. Go ahead and get some of that threading knocked out in advance. There we go. Slide it in the rail and tighten her up. Now this is crazy, but I actually seem to be missing one bolt. I've got the tab, but I don't have the bolt. So luckily I do have a repair kit for kitchen sinks that includes that. I'm going to go grab that. Y'all don't let me forget to actually show you my repair kit when we're all done with this, because we're getting pretty close to the end. But for now, I'm just going to go grab my bolt real quick so we can finish this up. All right, it's not exactly the same, but it's pretty close, and I think the threading matches on the bolt, so I do think we're going to be able to use this. Of course, I'm dumb enough that I didn't realize I'm going to have to loosen this one, slide it to the center, and go ahead and use this particular one on the center, because I can't slide the new one on from the edge with this one in the way. So we'll put that good one on the center, and then hopefully this guy is going to work. Yep, it seems like it is. Seems like it's going to work. Okay, so we've got 2 on each side and 3 on the top and 3 on the bottom. This sink is now officially installed, and really the only thing left is to remove all this caulk and then maybe add some caulk if we need to. So I'm going to grab a rag. Here we go. Just going to grab a rag, and I'm going to use my common slotted screwdriver because this caulk is not dry, but it's half dry. So it's going to be pretty easy now to just scrape up in a nice long line like that and just get rid of all of this excess. See that? Nice and easy. And then we'll take a dry rag. Believe it or not, it's better than a wet rag. And we'll just scrub where all the old caulk was, all the way around, putting quite a bit of pressure on there. We're just kind of using friction for the most part to take off what's left. And then we'll do one last little pass with a wet rag. But I'll tell you what, this is working so well, we almost don't even need to. Yeah, actually we don't need to. So if you want to go back at the very end and just apply a fresh bead of caulk all the way around to make sure that you don't have any teeny tiny little holes left, of course that is absolutely fine, nothing wrong with that, but from what I can see, this one came out really good, and I don't think that's even going to be necessary. So there you have it. This sink is installed. This is a brand new sink installed. I don't know how long this would take me on the job. Very clearly it would take less time than it takes me to film a video while doing it. But I've only been filming for about 40 minutes right now, including the cutting out of the hole. So of all total 40 minutes of filming, I may be editing some out, or maybe I'm off by a few minutes. But this is less than an hour to cut this hole and get this new sink in. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you my repair kit that I actually ended up needing a part out of today. I'm going to show you my repair kit. This is my kitchen sink kit that I take in on every kitchen sink job. Strike that. This is made from 2 older repair kits, each of which I may or may not have taken in on every job, but the intent of the kit is to have one all-encompassing kit to take in for all sink jobs that's going to get me through 90% of all of the sink jobs. So I'm going to bring that kit over, I'm going to show you what's in it, and then we're going to talk about what my pricing is for installing a new sink like this. So here's the kit. Now, as I was mentioning earlier, the intent of this kit is to be able to take this into any job that has anything to do with a kitchen sink and just simply be able to take this one kit in and fix everything we need and not need to go back and forth to the van. So let's take a look at what we have inside this kit. First of all, these are little hose clamps right here. The purpose of these is when you have a dishwasher and the complaint is that water is backing up from the sink into the dishwasher. Or if they don't know that's what's happening, the complaint is just simply that the dishwasher is full of stinky, dirty, nasty water. What you're going to do is you're going to go underneath and you're going to take the dishwasher drain line, you're going to put this clamp around it, and you're going to go all the way up as high as you can inside the cabinet, up towards the top of the sink basin from inside the cabinet, and you're going to clamp that washer hose line on way up high, and that's going to make it so that when you fill your sink with water and it drains down into the garbage disposal and tries to go out, it's not going to go downhill and down into your dishwasher. Instead, it has to go uphill first before it can make it to the dishwasher, and it's not going to be able to go uphill that far, and that's going to solve that problem for you. In this little bin here, I have some aerators. Most of these are going to be about the same size, so just buy the standard ones they have at Home Depot. Every now and then you're not going to have the right size, but you're not going to need these often anyways. I do have some conical rubber washers with the screws for the stems. I also have some flat washers with the screws for the stems. I have a few random O-rings in here, a few more random O-rings in here. These are all just for repairing faucets, which, by the way, I don't repair faucets often. It's usually not worth the time and effort. They're going to go bad again because they've got all kinds of corrosion and gunk and lime buildup in there that's eating out your O-rings and stuff. So I usually just replace them anyways. We've also got some band clamps, and this is this one they're calling it faucet grease. It doesn't necessarily have to be faucet grease, but you want a lubricant that's made for potable water systems because you will need that at times. We've also got some caps, and in fact what these caps are for, see if I can show you nice and easy here. You've got these holes up here that your faucet stuff used to be in. In fact, these caps are not the right size. I think this cap will be. Here we go. So you've got these holes like your sprayer hole over here on the side. Well, if we install a faucet that doesn't have a side sprayer, now we've got this open hole. So these caps are made to just fill those holes. You can get white ones, you can get black ones, you can get chrome ones. You can get some like these where the teeth are going to bend off to the side like that. See if we can see that. Where the teeth just bend out to hold it into place like that. You can also get some, this just has a little plastic cover. It's actually nice and pretty. But you can also get some that connect like this. So either way, you can have those caps in your case. We have a stem repair kit. Now, this stem repair kit right here, I've never used before. I just added these. I don't know if they're going to be any good or not, but the idea is they're not for the quarter turn valves. They're for the multi-turn valves, which are going to be the most common ones you're going to find in these old places. So hypothetically, this rebuild kit is going to help me rebuild those without having to swap them out. We shall see. I'm not getting my hopes up, but I put them in the kit just in case. Now, this is the parts and pieces that I was telling you about earlier that I used for mounting this sink. And if the bolt hadn't worked, there are other latches in here as well. But this is just extra mounting parts for the sinks. Here's some more of those spare caps right here. I've got a handful of them. They're pretty cheap, so it doesn't hurt to just pick one up when you see them. Next, I have some side sprayers. A lot of times what you're going to find is you get work orders for side sprayers that just aren't working right anymore. So you can actually pick up, and I have a brushed nickel, and I also have a chrome. Now, these are not super pretty. These are made for rentals, guys. So if you're working on a really nice house for a wealthy person, or just somebody who wants to pay the extra money to have the nicer side sprayer, by all means, go and purchase them the nicer side sprayer that's actually made for their make and model of sink. These are just the universal fit ones for the rentals where they just want the problem solved. They want it solved quickly and efficiently. Right here, what we've got, this is actually for putting in the strainer baskets. You can slide this bar through down here on the bottom to hold it. You can slide this up into your strainer basket to hold your strainer basket in place while you tighten the nut. And speaking of tightening the nut, up in the top here, we've actually got all of our equipment, all of our actual hand tools. So I'm going to show you those too. But one of those tools is the nut tightener that you can slide on and tighten that nut to get your strainer baskets on. And this is just a nice little kit. What else we have down here? This is also for the exact same thing. This can be slid up and used to hold your strainer basket in place while you tighten nuts. But this also has about 1,000 other uses. For example, let's see, I believe the top piece here is going to be usable for tightening faucets when you have the plastic pieces for the faucets, the plastic nuts. Either end of this might be usable for those. It depends on what style you have, but it usually is. But this is just a good all-around multi-tool to have for kitchen sinks. It's going to come in handy in a multitude of ways. Let's jump back up to the top real quick. We've just got a regular screwdriver. We've got Phillips on one end, common on the other. We're not going to need that very often, but they're cheap and easy to throw in the kits. Like I said, this is for your strainer basket nuts down here. Pair of channel locks. I just always have channel locks, guys. These are the best pliers in the world. I love me a good pair of channel locks. They're usable for so many things. Good pair of regular pliers there. A nice crescent wrench and an Allen wrench set. And honestly, the Allen wrench, by the way, I've been lying to y'all and telling y'all that most set screws are 1/16 inch. I really thought that was true, and who knows, maybe I was right. But what I'm finding when I'm looking it up now and when I'm trying to buy a set that has the right size is 5/64. So I don't know if it's 5/64 or 1/16, but this has the correct size for being able to tighten set screws on faucets and whatnot. So that's all of the hand tools. Moving on down here in the bottom, we've got some sealant. It's white premium adhesive sealant. This is always going to be great to use in kitchens and wet areas, also bathrooms. We've also got some pipe thread sealant. I think that's obvious. It's pipe thread sealant. We may want to seal some pipe threads if they're trying to leak on us, depending on what we're working on. And we've got some Teflon tape. This stuff is almost never necessary. Almost never, 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 never. Every now and then it is. Please don't use this unless you know for a fact it needs to be used. A lot of people treat this as if it's supposed to just go on literally every single thread, and that is not the case. Alright, so let's talk honestly about pricing. Kitchen sinks are a hard one to price because there's so many different scenarios and so many different variables. So we're going to start at the beginning with the most common scenario, which is going to be an existing countertop with an existing sink, and they would like you to put a new sink in, which means you're going to have to remove the faucet, the garbage disposal, and the drain plumbing. Anything attached to that sink, you're going to have to remove the old sink, and then you're going to have to install the new sink, and then you're going to have to put the faucet, the garbage disposal, and everything else back on. So it's going to be a much bigger job to uninstall everything, put the new sink in, and then reinstall everything. So for a job like that, I'm going to be at about $350 labor. If somebody's asking me to estimate this cost in advance, then I'm going to say in advance they need to be prepared and approved for $350 labor to remove everything and install a new sink and put everything back. However, I'm going to have a lot of caveats in there because I'm not going to know in advance what I'm going to find when I remove this sink. So that $350 is going to be a minimum, but there's also going to be an agreement in place there in writing that says when I remove that old sink, this $350 applies to if all of the parts that are there are able to be used again and there's no unseen damage that I'm not aware of and nothing else goes wrong, and they will know in advance what the cost is going to be should any number of other things go wrong that I need to fix on the spot, such as replacing shutoff valves down below, replacing supply lines, or even replacing an entire faucet with a brand new faucet if the old faucet is not reusable. So $350 labor, bare minimum, to remove an existing sink along with all the stuff on it, put a new sink in, and put all of the stuff back on it. That's going to be minimum $350 labor. However, another scenario you're going to find that I've had happen a handful of times is somebody's going to get new countertops put in and they're not going to pay for a sink cutout and a sink. And then they're going to end up asking you to come and do this cutout from the top because you're not going to go removing the old countertops. So they're asking you now to come in and do exactly what I just did, which is cut out on an existing countertop and drop a new sink in. And then most likely they're going to be asking you to put in a new faucet and stuff as well. But just in case they're not, just in case they only want you doing the sink, just to put this basin in exactly what you just watched me do, that would be $150 labor for me on my end. And there aren't really going to be any caveats attached to that. There's not going to be any disclaimers really. If they're new countertops and you're just putting a new basin in, it's going to be pretty cut and dry and pretty simple every single time. And then we're going to go up from there. If they want a new faucet installed as well, we're going to add to the price. If they want new strainer baskets installed, we're going to charge more for that. And you can look at that on an hourly basis, or you can look at that as a package deal, either way. But for what you just watched, $150 for removing everything from an in-place sink and putting everything back with a new sink basin, minimum $350. And then if you'll watch the next videos coming out, I'm about to start filming the install of the faucet, the install of the strainer baskets, and setting everything else up, so you'll get more gauging on my pricing for those other tasks as we move forward in this series. Now, if you guys want to learn more about my pricing, I do have some documents you can download for free. If you go to the bottom of the description on this video or on any of my videos at all, you're going to find the link you can click for my free business documents. Within there, you're going to find two documents that are useful. One is going to be called Jobs List with Pricing. Ignore the pricing on that for the most part. Don't try to use my pricing, but you can use that form with its formulas to come up with your own pricing. The other document is going to be my line items, my custom line items. This is a CSV file of custom line items, and what I've done is I've created something like 100 custom line items in my Jobber account for my actual handyman business that I use on a daily basis for estimating and for invoicing. I've downloaded that CSV file of all of my custom line items and made them available to you. So if you have Jobber, you can upload all of my custom line items into your Jobber account and just hit the ground running using mine. Of course, again, change the pricing to suit your pricing, change the descriptions to suit your descriptions. Read through it all carefully and make sure when you're using my custom line items that you're not saying things that you don't intend to say. But you can use my line items. If you would like any help uploading them, I do webinars. They're free workflow webinars every single Saturday. Sometimes they're on a Sunday, but usually on a Saturday. There's also links for those webinars. They're always free in the description of this video, so you can come to the webinar, you can learn how to use the software, and I'll also teach you inside the webinar. You do have to ask me, just say, hey Ray, can you show me how to upload your custom line items, and I'll go ahead and show you how to do that as well, but those are going to be pretty handy. Otherwise, if you guys have any additional questions or comments or video requests, go ahead and comment here and let me know, or you can email me always at bulletproofhandymanbusiness@gmail.com. I am not so big these days that I can't answer every single email, so I do try to answer every single email and every single comment. Let me know what else you guys need any help with, or what you need videos on, or any specific questions you need to ask, and I'll try to get back with you. Otherwise, I love you guys. I hope you're out there killing it, and I'll see you on the next one.